Another week, another spectacular episode of Moon Knight. I'm really enjoying this series. I think this was my favorite episode so far, and not just because of the action scenes, even though they were amazing as well. But we're going to break down the entire episode, talk about all the good stuff, all the weird stuff, all the questions, and so let's just get right on into it. I do want to start off though by thanking JSCars8 for helping with some of the screenshots you see in this video. As an American, if I were to screenshot Disney Plus or screen record it, it just shoots out a black screen. However, if you're in Canada for whatever reason, that actually doesn't happen. So thanks to him. And yeah, now let's get into it. It just starts off with Layla forging a passport to Egypt because obviously that's where she's going to find Marc and ultimately help him with the whole Harrow ordeal. And it shows what I think is her mother, although they're a little unclear about the relationship between the two. Obviously, this person refers to Layla as love. Layla kisses her on like the forehead. So it definitely seems like a mother-daughter relationship. And of course, they talk about the death of her father, which we will learn more about later in the episode. Probably the only question that we really get raised out of this episode. It's kind of a new mystery that we have to deal with. Arthur Harrow does find Ammit's tomb using the scarab, and then we suddenly see Marc dashing over rooftops and picks a fight with three guys who apparently know of Harrow and they know where the dig site is. I'm kind of confused how this all transpired and how they were associated with Harrow, or at least how Marc knew that, because it definitely seems like where we left off at the end of episode 2 was in fact a third personality. You know, where he was drinking and had the bloody fist and kind of strolled on over to the window and pulled the shades back. And I talked about this in my breakdown of the first episode. There was a very important part that I want to bring back up, and that is Steven didn't ask out that girl from the museum. We know that. Why would Marc ask the girl out? We know that Marc wouldn't just be, oh, let me get a little date for Steven. Like, no, that's not happening. So I do think there is a third personality here at play, and there's something, in a couple minutes here that even affirms that more. Now, of course, we have an interesting transition to Steven here where he looks at the reflection on the knife. That is the shiniest knife I've ever seen in my life. He must have just gotten that. And so this is exactly what they did in episode 1 where they cut out all of Steven's scenes and only show Marc, at least at the beginning here. Now, Steven tries to make a break for it back to England because he gets a taxi cab, but fortunately Marc wakes up in time. And then we have what I think to be the actual confirmation of the third identity, which in the comics we know as Jake Lockley, who's a taxi cab driver. So just kind of like a little bit more gritty type of personality, I'd say, but not a full-on mercenary like Marc is. Because neither Marc or Steven knows who killed the guys on the cliff there. I mean, it wakes up with Marc just retracting the knife out of the guy's gut. Obviously, Steven didn't kill him. Obviously, Marc didn't kill him. So it's almost guaranteed there was a third personality at play here, unless for whatever reason Konshu is the one actually taking over the body. I know that's kind of a silly prediction, but Konshu just seems to be aloof about the whole thing. He just is kind of like standing off in the distance. And so we learn that these guys are actually followers of Ammit. So whatever happened, Marc was right. However, Marc knew, yeah, he was right. Because the kid cuts that scarf and then falls to his death, which I thought was a really interesting scene. It was kind of gut-wrenching, I thought, but it does learn how committed these people are to Ammit. And I love how Steven here refers to Konshu as a stupid pigeon. At first, I didn't get it, but when I rewatched it, I was like, yep, he does kind of look like a bird face. I mean, he definitely is with the big beak and all. And so Konshu exercises his limited, albeit formidable power by transforming the sun into a shape of a crescent moon for a brief period so that he would get the gods' attention. And so then, of course, ensues the council where we meet the avatars of some of the other gods, such as Hathor, who seems to have had experience with Konshu, perhaps a romantic one, just based on the way her avatar Yatsiel speaks. And if Layla was in the picture, I'd even think that there could be a romantic relationship between Marc and Yatsiel. Or maybe in the future it'll be Steven and Yatsiel. Who knows? Which, that would be kind of weird. I don't know. That's such a weird thing. Can Steven and Marc have different relationships? Can Layla love both of them? It's so interesting to think about. So, of course, Konshu pleads his case through Marc in a very dramatic fashion. I wasn't a huge fan of how just absolutely theatrical he was about it, because all the avatars, all the other ones are not, so I thought that was a little strange. But Arthur does come in, lie about what he's truly doing, and this also confuses me a bit, because can't the gods just go and see what he's doing? Like, I feel they should be powerful enough to know that he's lying, because it's not like Arthur's doing any of this in secret. He's got a ton of followers, and he doesn't hide his true intentions. He literally goes around saying Ammit, whatever, like, roots out evil. What did he say? Ammit says, or Arthur says that Ammit, like, extracts evil from the root, something like that. Some very philosophical speech that I can't remember the exact wording for, but yeah, thought that was a little strange. Now, this probably was the most powerful scene for me. I really enjoyed the scene here when Marc does admit he's unwell. I thought that was very honest and authentic for them to actually put in the show, because Marc does go around seeming like a very macho type of personality, but he does seem very vulnerable in this scene. So then Yatzil, the avatar of Hathor, helps Marc out a bit, just kind of explaining how to find the sarcophagus and all that. And I think she will come back into play. I'm sure we'll see actually a bunch more of these other avatars as well. Hathor is quite a bit different in the comics from what I understand, taking on the name of Sekhmet, the lion god, so still related to Egyptian mythology, but Yatzil is not even a comic book character herself. And so then we have this profound interaction between Layla and Marc on the boat as they're going to Mogart's festival, where it's clear they still love each other, but Marc right now is in this really depressed state of mind. I mean, he just said he's unwell, and so he doesn't see a reality where they can be together. But I do think Layla does. I think she believes there's still a future for them, or at least there could be. Now we meet Anton Mogart, who in the comics is Midnight Man, a very short-lived character at this whole party here. Now in the comics, he is also associated with stealing ancient relics and art pieces and all that stuff. So they did change a few things, but kind of the general idea, the infatuation for this type of stuff is still there. He and Layla have some sort of nebulous past, and yet it's not fully revealed, because he does say during the show that he was ready to make peace with her, which seems a little weird, like maybe it was a romantic past, and yet it's not fully clear. Maybe she stole some stuff from him, because it's also mentioned earlier in the show that she used to steal pieces of art and whatnot. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now. And now he was played by Gaspard Ulliel, I hope I pronounced that right, and he tragically passed away from a skiing incident a couple months ago. I remember when the news broke, like, it really was sad to hear about that, because it was right before the premiere of Moon Knight, and I really hope that, one of these episodes is dedicated to him. I would assume it would be. And so I think that because this one was not dedicated to him, that we'll actually see Midnight Man later on, because he does escape, of course, which we'll talk about in a brief moment here. And so we do see the beginnings of Steven and Marc working together. And it's kind of interesting that Marc threatens Steven with like a bloodbath, aka killing a ton of people in order to get him to help. Kind of a weird way of doing that, not super morally right, but I guess it worked. Of course, as always, Arthur rolls up and Konshu pressures Marc to summon the suit, but he doesn't actually do it until Arthur's gone, which is perplexing as heck to me. Like, bro, put the suit on, take care of Arthur right then and there. I don't know why he was hesitating to put the suit on. Seems like something else might be at play here in the works. Something a little bit, I don't know, mysterious. An amazing fight sequence, of course, occurs here as Moon Knight flings around his crescent daggers and is briefly interrupted by Steven's Mr. Knight until he gets impaled by these staffs, which just goes to show how powerful Moon Knight is, especially during this fuller phase of the moon, since he's able to easily work his way out of them. Marc actually removes the mask for the first time while he's in full costume and saves Layla from Anton, but Anton seems to escape, like I said, even though he takes a crescent right to the back. God, that must have hurt. And so, yeah, I really hope we see him again. I think we will. I mean, he's too big of a character not to bring back. And also, I mean, if you weren't, you probably should have just killed him. And then I know this might be a little bit too insensitive to talk about, but before the show came out, I was thinking, Are they going to kill Midnight Man during the movie? Like, is Anton going to die during the show rather, not the movie? Because, I mean, a lot of characters die, right? It's definitely possible that they were intending to bring him in for a couple episodes and then kill him off, or maybe just one episode. So it's also possible in my eyes that he was actually supposed to die during this episode, and yet they just recut it so that he just kind of rides off into the distance. So it doesn't show him actually dying. You guys know what I'm saying? Because that would be insensitive in and of itself to kill the character whose actor just died in real life. I don't know. It's really complicated, but I'm probably stretching with this, but it's just kind of an interesting point that I wanted to bring up here. And so another first time, Marc willingly lets Steven take over the body to help with the constellations and all that. And we see the most benevolent version of Konshu, in my opinion, yet, because he does something that he knows will cause the gods to imprison him in stone. He changes the night sky back about 2,000 years, which is just a really beautiful sequence. I enjoyed this a lot. I saw, obviously we saw this in the trailer. I had no idea what it actually was. I was very far off in what it ended up being. And this is an interesting sacrifice for the greater good here, as he tells Steven to tell Marc to free him, which I don't know how he's going to do, because it's evident that Moon Knight lost his power as well. Marc and Steven lost their Moon Knight powers, because Konshu literally said at the beginning of the episode that if he were to be imprisoned in stone, Marc wouldn't have the ceremonial armor from Konshu's tomb or whatever it is. So it'll be interesting to see this next episode how they can fare without the whole armor and all that stuff. I don't know how it's going to work. It could even look like Steven or Marc actually died in this moment as well. And then the final scene shows Arthur with the leader of the God Council, and it almost seems that they're working together, like contriving, but I'm not fully convinced of it. It just came across a bit sketchy to me. I loved how Arthur says his victory will be because of Konshu's torment. That was a phenomenal line, extremely well written. I think Arthur's character overall has been very well written, and I thought this final scene was probably one of the best yet. And then I just had one more thought that didn't really fit in anywhere else, but during the whole Egyptian street market scene, Marc had a blacked out Cubs hat on. At least it looks like a Cubs hat. The C is pretty much identical. And I love that, just being from Chicago, I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, this was a great episode. Not too many Easter eggs, but a lot of questions that were developed, a lot of new things to speculate on. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of it all. And thank you as always for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you guys next week for episode 4. Bye now.